What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Guys, just wanted to do a quick video here. PFF grades for the Indianapolis Colts. I won't go into every single player, but I will be going over some of the better grades and some of the worst grades for Indy this year. So, looking at the top 5 overall grades when it comes to the offense, okay? So, top 5 offensive grades. Braden Smith with an 83.3 and Bernhard Raimann with an 82.3. Very good to see both of the tackles both having a exceptional impact on the team. We definitely should not be surprised. When Braden Smith's out there, they play really well. When Bernhard Raimann is out there, he does really well. So not overall too crazy there. Michael Pittman Jr. with a 77.7. Kind of strange to see him down so low in regards to a PFF grade, but nevertheless, he is top 3. Ryan Kelly, also with a 77.2. And running back Jonathan Taylor with a 74.9. So when you look at the best grades for the Indianapolis Colts when it comes to best offensive players, no doubt that the offensive line for the Indianapolis Colts gets a lot of love from media and from people who are watching. Jonathan Taylor's grade, I wouldn't necessarily read too much into that because, again, he didn't get to play for a good chunk of the year. So, I mean, that number could have been very much different had the end of the season been going the way that we expected and if things would have gotten better. Okay, so let's look at overall defensive grades. So, top 5 overall defensive grades for Indy. Samson Ebukam actually got the number 1 overall PFF grade for Indy this year with an 84.4. Obviously, Ebukam had the highest sack total for Indy this year. Overall, one of the better defensive linemen that we had, and from a pass rushing perspective. Defensive tackle DeForest Buckner was second with an 81.8. Kenny Moore was third with a 77.4. Don't know why it's so low. It should have definitely been higher. Grover Stewart was the 4th one with a 76.2. And then Kwity Paye was 5th with a 74.3. So again, 4 defensive linemen for Indy all getting higher PFF grades. And I actually wanted to pull this tweet up from Cody because this was interesting. I wanted to look at this really quickly. He had posted this where Kwity Paye finished with a top 5 grade on the Colts defense, according to PFF. However, his 62.2 pass rush grade was 9th on the team. For reference, the Colts one tech Grover Stewart had a better pass rush grade. Now, obviously, I would take the grade that Kwity got and say it probably was increased due to the performance in the run game. He definitely is a great player at that. But I would mention once again that from an offensive pass rush perspective, he did not have a phenomenal year. Once again, an overall pressure rating and beating his guys one-on-one. It just wasn't as good as the PFF grade states that it is. So, definitely you guys can tell me what you think about that. Hey, we're just doing this just for the fun of it, just to see what we got. But of course, like Cody said, there is a definite disconnect from that score and what production he's actually giving from the pass rush perspective. Now, let's look at the bottom 5 overall grade offensively. Minimum 170 snaps. Blake Freeland and Wesley French top off the list. Blake Freeland at a 44.2. That's not a surprise. Blake Freeland had a couple weeks at the end of his tenure as the right tackle where he was bad. Wesley French I would not give as strict because, Wesley French I felt like actually did a relatively decent job in the few times that he did play this year. Third is actually quarterback Anthony Richardson, who did eclipse enough snaps to make this list with a 52.2. I think that's not a great number. I think that there's a lot of other things that factor into that. And of course, I don't necessarily believe it. Kylan Granson, 56.8. And wide receiver Alec Pierce with a 58.1. I don't know how Granson gets such a low grade because, I mean, he makes catches. Maybe just the overall lack of production when he's on there. Maybe it's the same thing with Alec Pierce. But those are your top 5 guys when it comes to overall worst grades when it comes to the offense. And that's Blake Freeland, Wesley French, Anthony Richardson, Kylan Granson, and Alec Pierce. Now, a couple of those guys, I don't agree with the rankings, or we all know that the rankings are a little bit different if you look at it from a different lens. But moving on here to the defense here, bottom 5 overall grade defensively. Eric Johnson is by far the lowest with a 30.5. Eric Johnson II has not had a great time here in Indy so far, and definitely is one to monitor for later on. Defensive tackle Taven Bryan with a 51.3. Again, the same thing, guys. Cornerback Darrell Baker Jr., that's no surprise there. Defensive end Dio Dangbo actually makes this list with a 57. Not entirely sure why that is, though. I would have thought that Dio would be a little bit higher than that, but that's where they're marking him. And cornerback Jalen Jones. No doubt Jalen Jones had a few things where he definitely can work on, but again, he's a rookie, and I don't necessarily believe that he is the worst when it comes to that. And just looking at it, guys, from the perspectives of some other things here, again, shout out to Colts Wire for posting some of these stats. The two highest pass blocking players for Indy is Bernard Ryman and Quentin Nelson from a pass blocking perspective. The 2 best run blocking guys this year for Indy was Braden Smith and Ryan Kelly. Pass rush attempts, the 2 best players actually from a pass rush perspective for a PFF grade was actually DeForest Buckner, and Tyquan Lewis actually was second on that list. From a run defense perspective, the 2 best players was actually Nick Cross leading the way at safety and Samson Ebukam second. Overall best coverage grades, this shouldn't be a surprise for Indy folk. Kenny Moore was number 1 and Julian Blackman was number 2. So definitely interesting, guys, to kind of get a different perspective on that. But let us know your thoughts. What do you guys think of some of these scores? Like I said, PFF grades are not everything. This is strictly what PFF thinks of these players. And unfortunately, it's kind of something that's been brought into the NFL, and a lot of people like to take it at its word, but not actually dissect everything about these said players and their performances. But it is something that people will see and look at. So let us know your thoughts, guys. What do you guys think of these ratings? But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always,